Hey, DNC fam, Emma Ansah here. I hope all is well. It is December 26th, the day after Christmas. And oh my gosh, family here in Canada, my lord. Well, here in Ontario, it is freezing. It's minus 9 degrees Celsius, which works out to be 15.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Just imagine. And then on top of that, we have freezing rain. So literally everywhere is like a sheet of ice right now. So I have no intentions on leaving the house. And to any that are on the road, my Ontario peeps, please be safe because it is nuts out there. That's my rant about Canada winters. So today's topic, we are going to be talking about, well, these white nationalists that I've been reporting about for a while now that be walking around here, chanting remigration and mass immigration, and they want to prepare, or they are preparing for what they call an ethnic cleansing and taking back the country. So we had some that decided that they were going to dress up as Satan. I'm sorry, I mean Santa, and go marching around Niagara Falls on the Canadian side chanting remigration and ho ho ho, they all must go. So we'll look at that video, and then of course there's going to be an economic moment with M, of course, and I'm going to share some statistics of the $78 million that was spent by Canada to deport 18,000 people and their plans to ramp up the deportation because, listen, the Liberal Party has made a colossal mess, okay? And they're trying to do a real cleanup exercise. But we also have to look at who it impacts and then just the madness of this en masse immigration that they want to do. And it's under this bill called C-12. So we'll look at all of that and then we'll talk some more. But first, let us just look at this group of Satans. I'm sorry, Santas.
They say, ho, 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 they have to go. Ho, 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 send them home.
Do they not look silly? Do they not look silly? Okay, in my humble opinion, they look absolutely ridiculous. And at the end, you see the large sign and it says, "All I want for Christmas is remigration." So, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to give you a list of who these white nationalists are because I do think it's important that us living here in Canada know who they are. And then also, just really talk about their plans and what it is that they're trying to do. And maybe they'll feel happy about the fact that Canada is really trying to do a cleanup exercise between this year and next year. Lighthouse, you told me to leave Satan out of this. I'll try. Yeah, I agree. They look real foolish. And then we'll also just talk about, I think it's important, as I said, to talk about what it is that they really hope to accomplish because the news reports out here are saying that it's really important that we take them seriously. But maybe after they see these statistics, they might feel better and they'll stop going into the woods and punching each other out and going into private gyms and punching each other out and preparing for combat and all that other good stuff. But let's just move on to economics with M for a minute and let's look at these groups. So we have, let me go back one slide. So we got Second Sons. And I think anyway, they have this thing called All Thy Sons, and it's a passage that's in the Canadian national anthem that says true patriot love with all thy sons command. And I think that's where they got that. Then we have Dominion Society of Canada. We have Nationalist 13. They're the ones, and second sons are the ones that I feel, in my opinion, that we're seeing more than any other that are out here with their migration signs and what have you, and preparing for combat. And so they're in the woods and all that other stuff. Then we have Diagolon. And then we have more groups. We've got Canadian Nationalist Party. nationalist patriots, as they like to call themselves. We have Soldiers of Odin, Canadian chapters. And then we have the Northern Guard in Quebec. Then we have on the network's listed entities, we got Proud Boys and their listed terrorist entity in Canada. And I know that they have them in the United States as well. Then we have the Base, which is a listed terrorist as well. Then we have Adam Waffen. That's how it's pronounced, division. And then we have the Aryan Strike Force. So these are the ones that are known, reported, and they're out here on these Canadian streets causing a ruckus. So that is them. And like I said, maybe they'll feel better if they know what Canada has in store as far as immigration. So we're going to look at a news report next of sort of just a snapshot of what Canada is planning, and then we'll look at a more deep dive in depth. I'll share like some numbers to really show how they spent this 78 million and what that looks like. So let us just watch this news report.
Services agency is removing about 400 people a week from the country, a pace of deportation not seen in over a decade.
Overwhelmingly, it is refugee claimants, failed refugee claimants who are being removed in these numbers.
This refugee lawyer says the government may be preparing for its border bill, C-12, which it hopes to pass in the spring.
Our concern is that it will continue to rise once the border bill is passed, and that it is a ramping up to basically prepare both for the increased number of deportations that will happen and also for them to be able to do them as speedily as possible.
Removals dropped below 10,000 a year during the COVID pandemic, but have since surged back. The numbers for the current fiscal year are on track to set a new record high of about 22,000. The cost of all those deportations has also increased to nearly $80 million this year. CBSA says it costs between $3,000 and $4,000 on average to remove someone who leaves willingly without the need for escort. When deportees have to be escorted out of the country, the average cost more than triples.
Just to be clear,
the Kearney government, under its border plan, already gave CBSA an additional $30 million to pay for up to 20,000 removals per year this year and next. The agency says it's on track to deport even more than that. Not all deportees came as asylum seekers. Some came as foreign workers and international students, only to see the rules get tighter.
So that is the plan. And this bill C-12, they're saying they want to pass it by spring, but they're already started this cleanup exercise. And we know where this is really coming from, right? First of all, again, like I said, the Liberal government has made a colossal mess of things, okay? They allowed way more immigrants than the country can actually even handle, okay? But we can't discount the ones that, made indelible contributions to this country, like doctors, lawyers, nurses, personal support workers, healthcare givers to the elderly and stuff. Really, really great contributions to the country. But I think with this particular bill, with it being just en masse like that, it will impact the country. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the way this country is going and how people are suffering. Okay. The economy is in the below the toilet. Let's just put it that way. Okay. And then on top of that, we have the Conservative Party that's fighting to keep, the immigrants here, or at least not be shoveling them out en masse like they're doing, because they do feel like it will hurt the economy more than it already is. I'm just going to go to the chat here. I see the chat is alive and everybody has things to say. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, so DNA is from Syria, not Africa. Oh, we're talking about why Africans aren't doing mass immigration. That's a good question. It's up to the governments to decide. We definitely have people in Africa that are trying to commandeer and colonize and do all those things. And it's like, what right do you have to tell the actual people that live there that they can't live in this area, they can't live in this area? Definitely the government needs to step up for sure. I agree. So you're saying without Canada and America, there's no drinking water? That's an interesting theory. Well, we're going to look at that, Lala. Lala's asking if there's a specific group they're targeting. It is a bunch of different groups, and it's also under different categories. It's not just one group. But I'm going to break down the percentage for sure. Shalom, one Diaki. Thanks so much for joining. No, we can't leave evil out, because anybody who wants to be marching around inciting hate and violence is evil. Bottom line. Um, why are they against immigrants? Well, it's not that they're against immigrants. They're not against immigrants. The problem is the liberal government, and I'm going to keep saying it. God knows I'm going to open my mouth wide and say the liberal government allowed a lot of immigrants in here en masse, and it caused problems in this country, because some of the problems it causes are problem with housing, problem with healthcare, problems with healthcare and housecare for sure. Um, and then also the crime rates increased as well. So there were a lot of things that were on the uptick big time. And that's the problem. When you have something en masse that you can't control or handle, then it starts to cause problems, right? Even food banks, everything was overwrought, and people were getting turned away from food banks with legitimate needs. So it became a problem. So that's like the main reason. Um, yeah, I agree. TN3. And that's my whole point is, I agree with you, Donnie LP, that the blame is in the wrong way. The blame needs to be shifted towards the liberal government. They are the ones that let it in. Okay. I don't want to say it, them in. And that's part of the problem. And it starts with them. So let us just look at some of these statistics here. So it's economics with M time. Class is in session. Bill C-12, Canada's deportation crackdown. So as I was saying, or as you heard in the news broadcast, 78 million has been spent so far. And at this point, they're deporting 400 people a week. So we're going to talk about who it's affected, who's not effective, and what's really not being said. So what is BC-12? It's a federal legislation expanding immigration enforcement powers. Those powers will result in faster removals, expanded CBSA discretion, and fewer procedural delays and tighter border controls. So we're going to look at where this 78 million was spent. So as I said, it's actually over 78 million, but how many people were deported so far? 18,000. And then we're going to talk about the estimated spending breakdown. So enforcement and arrest operations costed 28 to 30 million. Okay. Then detention and holding facilities, 14 to 16 million. Flights and removals, escorts and charters, 18 to 20 million. Administration and case processing, 8 to 10 million. And the average cost per deportation was approximately 4,300. So imagine all of these people costing 4,300 on average to deport them. So this is just a little graph that shows the weekly. So 400 people deported every week, and it is the fastest pace in over a decade. So when we look back to when Trudeau was in office to now, this is the fastest pace we have ever seen people be deported in this country. And where is this headed? So 400 removals per week, 20,800 removals per year. And then we're saying with the passing of Bill C-12, it'll be 22,000 to 25,000 removals annually. And this would represent one of the highest, as I said, deportation totals in Canada's history. All right. So who's being removed? So we've got 65% are being removed. So the big blue area is the biggest chunk of the pie. Failed refugee claimants. So failed is failed. You just didn't pass the must. So you're not going to be able to come. So people who come and seek asylum or file for refugee status, 65% of them are failed. Then we got 25 to 30% status violations. So people who overstayed or lost their permits, that falls in the 25 to 30%. Then we have 2 to 5% criminal inadmissibility. So the green is the smallest amount, which is criminals. And then the red is the second largest, which falls under the violations and overstays. So now we get into the regions. So a viewer asked about that. Who are they targeting? So we have 35 to 40% in the Caribbean and Latin America. Then we have Africa, 20 to 25%. Then we have Asia, 20 to 25%. Then we have Europe, 10 to 15%. And then we have India at 15.6%. That's a really interesting number. And I say that only because India is the largest number of immigrants that were let into the country at over 834,000 just in this past year. And that's for everything: temporary visa, work visa, student visa, and visitors visas. They hold the highest. So I find it interesting that they're kind of in the lowest area when it comes to being deported. That's very interesting. So the data shows that we're going to look at the accountability. The majority of the 78 million was used to remove people for administrative reasons, failed refugee claims, as I said, expired permits, and status violations. But when we have to look about who benefits from it: enforcement agencies and private contractors, political narratives centered on tough borders. And I'll talk to that because that definitely falls under Trump and the tariffs, and him saying that our borders aren't strong enough, and we're allowing fentanyl and illegal immigrants into the United States, or we're responsible for them pouring into the country. So I do feel like Canada is really trying to step up their game to say, "Look, Trump, look what we're doing." But it's to the detriment of some immigrants, like I said, that really shouldn't be um, ushered out at this point. So who pays the price? Families will be separated, workers and students will be forced out, racialized and global South communities, taxpayers funding removals rather than integration. So that is a snapshot of what is happening here in good old Canada. And I just want to talk about, as I said, the border and Donald Trump and the tariffs as a result of what he felt was, poor border patrols and poor border securities, but also trolling us and saying that we should be the 51st state, and, him just not getting his way in this country. So that part of it as well. That's part of it. We know Trump can be a bully. Let us not lie. And he I think that he feels like he's got let me just say, a weak link here in Canada with the current prime minister. He praises him and everything because he's not tough on Trump. That's the bottom line. Because when it comes to Doug Ford, who's the premier of Ontario, he really he really doesn't like Doug Ford, because Doug Ford has no problem telling him about himself. So anyhow, part of the main thing here is literally the border. Okay, border security. And so the Canada Border Service Agency is working in lockstep with the Minister of Immigration, which is Lena Diab, and the Minister of Public Safety, which is Gary Ananda Sangari. And they are all doing this mass deportation. It will be very interesting to see how it's going to look in the end when all of these people are left or let go or deported, and what it will really mean in the end for this country. Because I don't know that at this point it's going to make a huge difference, because the bleeding is just, I mean, it's beyond. I don't know how they're going to stop the bleeding at this point. Even into next year, this economy is like garbage. It's a dumpster fire. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm just going to read some more comments here. You're saying they have to go back. Well, listen, I don't have a problem. I don't disagree that some immigrants do need to go back. I just think that there are some that are really great contributors to the country, law-abiding citizens. They've done wonderful things for the country. They have babies that were born here and all of that stuff. And so the problem with this bill, as far as what I can see right now is it's very vague. It's just a mass sweep. And so I think that they need to drill down and make sure that who you're deporting is rightfully so they should be, but the way that they're doing it and why the conservatives are fighting back is because they're like, we're just getting rid of 20,000, 18,000, 400 a week. And it's like, okay, 400 of who though? Right? So that's my only thing, but I don't disagree. I do not. They are not talking about that yet, Lala Brown. So you're just saying deport, deport, deport. Um, Yeah, I agree. When you talk about the terrorist area, because we do have these groups. I just gave you a whole list, and they are terrorists. There's no two ways about it. And by the way, when I posted that I was going to be doing this live stream, I tend to receive messages even before I even go live. And it's like, first of all, why don't you just wait and see what I'm going to show and what I'm going to say? But I do want to address the ones who said to me, we black people don't have to worry in Canada. It's not about black people, it's only about Indians. If you believe that, you are very naive, okay? You're sorely naive. I just showed an example. Indians were in the 15% bracket. Africa was higher. So what color is Africans? I'm just saying. So we can't say that these extremist groups are only targeting Indian people. That is absolutely not true. There was a black man in a park not too long ago that was verbally assaulted and by one of the folks who had a pellet gun, and he ended up getting a good can of whoop ass because that brother wasn't having it. But my point is that black people are on their list. Trust me, they are. Yeah, you're asking why do we let this happen? Blame the government. Blame the government. Specifically remember when Trudeau was in office, and this was during Trump's first run, and he was putting a ban on Muslims coming to the United States. And Trump got on his Twitter, because it was called Twitter at the time, and he said, "Oh, all of you are welcome to Canada." Basically, he was saying, if Trump won't let you in, we will. And I'm telling you, it was a free for all from then. And when I say free for all, let me just give you an example. Over 5 million people between 2022 and 2025 were let into this country without security checks. There was no security screening done whatsoever. So, for those of you that, are flying or travel to Canada, when you're on the plane, before you even get off, you got to fill out this form, right? This immigration form. And you got to ask, one of the questions is, have you been committed of a crime? And all they had to do was say, nope. And those over 5 million were allowed in. So can you imagine? Can you imagine? And I'm not suggesting all of them were criminals because they weren't. As far as what they're reporting now is there's only roughly around 400 at this point that are on the list of being deported. But at one point it was up to 600. So they weren't all criminals. But my point is, because of the lack of security screening, you allowed over 600 people and hardened criminals to be running these streets. And 600 can easily become 12, 18, 24. I mean, it's like when you have more than one mouse, they're going to multiply, right? So I think that estimation was underestimated for sure. And they know it, but they're not going to put that out there. They're not going to speak to all their deficiencies. But to answer your question, it's really the finger points at the government. Because had the government not allowed this, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. Because prior to Trudeau, we were not in this situation. I always say this. I say this moreover. I would have never expected in my lifetime to see this country in this state. And then when you have Trump trolling us and Trump charging tariffs and stuff, then you have these nationalists popping up all over the place who are heavily influenced by Donald Trump, by the way, heavily. that are saying, yeah, I agree, these S-hole countries and this garbage and all that other those other talking points. They're all for it and they feel ginned up and emboldened to do it. That's the first thing. Secondly, they have been going around doing this with no consequences. Every time they are pop up with posting signs all over the place or marching around, the police miraculously don't get there in time. It's always the police were called, but by the time we came, they were all gone. So there's no consequences. The other thing, January 10th, 2026, there is going to be a massive snowstorm. And when I say snowstorm, I just mean snow citizens that are going to descend upon Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and they are protesting immigration. Right now, they do not love our prime minister, okay? And when the Avalanche Avengers get together, they come in droves. They come in droves. So I will definitely be covering that. That should be interesting. Stay tuned for that one, folks. So a lot of people I see in the chat are saying they have to go back. Well, listen, like I said, I don't disagree with some. I don't disagree with a subset. But trust me, as somebody that lives here, there are a lot of immigrants that really are great contributors to this country. And if we really did an exercise and all of these immigrants were sent home, it would be interesting to see how this country functions. All right, let's see what else you guys are saying. Oh, you're on Christmas. Yeah. I mean, I have my feelings about Christmas and I've made it clear in one of my previous lives. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you're saying you don't want Canada to be the 51st state. And trust me, I think that's the general consensus of Canada anyway, and Canada will not be the 51st state. It just won't. I know that there is a province in this country though that would love to be a 51st state, and that's Alberta. Stay tuned for that. I've been watching a story that's going on in Alberta with them wanting to separate from Canada altogether. But I'm just waiting for some more information before I share that. So look out for that live. It's coming. So you're with Donald Trump. You're saying thank you, Donald Trump, for what he's doing to Canada. Well, okay, if you say so. So you're saying get out of other people's countries and others will stay out of the folks. Yeah. Um, so Sheila, you're asking me about you're asking me about what Trump has done to Nigeria. Yeah, I have some real strong feelings about that, and I will be talking about that in a separate live. But what I will say is I really don't think that well, let me just put it this way. Nigerian government, you need to get a spine. You need to get a spine. You're very spineless right now, and all that glitters isn't gold. You cannot think for 1 minute that Donald Trump is doing this out of the goodness of his heart for Christians. Let's not get it twisted. That's what I'll say for now. So you're saying Trump will make Canada pay for their national security, which would be a financial collapse for Canada if that happened. Yeah. Yeah, I don't only think that that would be a collapse. I think that this en masse immigration will also be a collapse. There has to be a healthy balance. That's the bottom line. There has to be a healthy balance. Um, I agree. The US doesn't want Canada. It's too liberal. I agree 100%. But Trump seems to want Canada, but I think maybe he'll turn it not to be liberal because definitely not liberal over there. But Canada's, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So you're saying, could you imagine if the Democratic Plantation Party had won the election? Foundational Black American citizens would have been doomed. Well, listen, over 77 million people voted for Trump, so the America has spoken. America has spoken. And The Democrats are similar to the liberals here, so I get what you're saying there. I totally get what you're saying there. Um, yeah, so you're talking about Trump being a bully and wrong for bombing that part of Nigeria. Yeah, like I said, I have my feelings about that, and I'll be speaking about it for sure. You're saying, God bless America. You adore Canada. You think it's beautiful. Well, listen, I will never say Canada isn't a beautiful country. It definitely is, especially if you go back like west. West and eastern part is really, really, really beautiful. It's beautiful here too, in like Ontario and stuff, but out west and out east is beautiful. But there's a lot of not so beautiful things that are going on here. Okay, not so beautiful things. And I'm sure if any of you have watched my reports, you have seen how there are some ugly parts of this country. I mean, I wouldn't say that Canada has been under the USA's thumb per se. I will say that they've been, well, what Canada likes to call a brother or a cousin, working very, very closely in lockstep on business and trade deals. But I wouldn't say under the thumb, no. But right now, with all of these tariffs and stuff like that, we're definitely realizing that we need to step up our game. But it's like overboard with the stepping up, in my opinion, or at this point. Yes, I agree. Africa needs to unite. I feel like all Black people in general across the globe needs to get to that point where we're unified. And I feel like that will make a huge difference. Now, the governments definitely need to get it together. Like I'm so mad at the government right now. I'm so mad. So mad. I agree. I agree. I agree. Well, family, you know what? This is what I wanted to share with you. I thank you so much for joining me. I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I will definitely keep you all informed on what's going on as the deportations start, or they have started, 400 a week, as I said. But just keep you informed on how it's going and what the impact is, because I do feel like there'll be an impact for sure. But I really appreciate you joining me and hanging out with me, and the chat is alive. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it very, very much. Before I let you go, I just want to also well, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before I let you go, I just want to remind you all, if you haven't done so already, to please download the African Diaspora News Channel app from your Google or Apple store. Also, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Truth and Black Excellence with Emma Ansah. Please subscribe to that as well. I'll be running more live streams more in the new year than I am now. I usually do it Saturday nights at 8 p.m. So come hang out with me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. I'll be talking about something there as well. So come hang out with me. And then also, I'm just going to also say, please, please tune in to what all the other journalists are doing on this platform. They're all crushing it, bringing you news from across the globe that affects our people and also educating. So it's a wonderful thing. So let us continue to support everybody on this platform. So thank you again. See you tomorrow. Until then, please be safe, everyone. Peace be.